Rami, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires or motivates you that you can share with us?
I'm not a quote person, but I find myself using a Seinfeld quote when I'm trying to describe processes, and the quote goes something like, "You cannot knock a Coke vending machine down in one take. You have to rock it back and forth." And for me, it's always a reminder of there are things that has an internal clock, and you cannot rush them. So it's always a good grounding for me. So I'm using that a lot. So that's a quote. I'm kind of a favorite one.
Love it. There's a lot of wisdom in Seinfeld, isn't there?
Yes.
So tell us about Salto. What does the product do? Who's it for? And what's the main problem you're hoping to solve?
So Salto is a configuration platform for SaaS applications. So when you look at kind of modern enterprise or any enterprise, to be honest, they manage the business or the day-to-day using cloud application, the likes of Salesforce, Jira, NetSuite, Okta. Everything is SaaS, and the SaaS is a no-code platform. And what these companies are doing on a daily basis is making changes to these applications to fit the business. Take an example of Salesforce. What you'll do, again, you'll have a group of people that are changing the configuration of Salesforce to fit what the business does. And that's a daily thing. They develop solutions around it. And the way these changes are being handled today, it's manual, it's error-prone. Basically, you go to the UI of Salesforce and you'll click and click and click and click. At some point, you'll get a solution. In most cases, you'll do it in production. And all of these things create some kind of a continuous process of misconfigurations happening in this application. And it's really hard to manage such unstructured process. What we do is we know how to connect to this application, extract the configuration, and basically offer you a DevOps-like process for this application. Think about, let's take another application. Let's take Okta. You'll data configuration in pre-production environment. We'll extract that configuration, show you what you did, and offer you a way to actually automatically move it to production while analyzing the changes that you made, if they are within a standard, if you're not making a mistake, if you're taking all the changes and getting you to production in the same way, while backing up your configuration, allowing you to restore to a known place, etc. So essentially, we are kind of the configuration platform of everything cloud application.
Great. Okay. So we're going to talk more about that and where the idea came from and some of the early days and getting started. Before we do that, let's talk a little bit about your background. This isn't your first startup. You have already worked and had 3 successful exits. I think you sold first company, I think Cisco and Red Hat and Oracle. So just tell us about that. What were some of the other startups that you've already built in?
Yeah, it's a different. So it's different area in each startup. So I started my career in the first startup was around networking. We built a fiber optic switch. That was the infrastructure back then. Very physical infrastructure, very real one. I was acquired by Cisco, as you said, very fast. It was a good success story. After we developed the product, within a quarter, we basically kind of covered all costs of the startup. So we very fast acquired by Cisco. I spent a few years in Cisco doing high-end routing, and then I left to do. We started a company called Kubernetes. If you know open source virtualization, it's called KVM. This is basically the engine that runs Amazon Cloud, Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud, whatever cloud you want to think about. We developed that. And it was introduced into the Linux kernel very fast, and we were acquired again by Red Hat. I spent 2 years at Red Hat pushing this in, making sure the product is viable. Left to start another company called Ravello. In Ravello, we went a layer above and we did cloud kind of virtualization. Essentially, we allowed enterprises that are trying to move to the cloud to rent capacity on the cloud without changing the application. That went really well. Was acquired by Oracle, spent 2 years in Oracle, and left to start Salto. So that's basically the background.
And now already you have some great traction with Salto. Can you give us a sense of the size of the business and where you are today?
So what is interesting in Salto compared to the other startups? Usually in a startup, it's a bit cynical, but it's true. You go to a prospective customer, you have to explain that he has a pain. Once he's convinced that he has a pain, you have to explain to him, yeah, and I'm the solution for that. In Salto, it's a little different. The pain is there. People know that they are mismanaging the configuration in these applications. It's something that whenever I go to talk to a customer, yeah, of course. And I have to convince them that I'm the right solution. So far, we've been like hundreds of customers, enterprise customers, Fortune 100, and large startups. There's no one vertical. We're at the kind of 8 figures in ARR and going really nice.
And you've raised just shy of, I think you were telling me 70 million so far?
Yeah, a little shy of 70. Yep. From Bessemer, Lightspeed, Excel, and Salesforce Ventures.
Okay, let's take a quick breather here. Are you struggling to bring your SaaS idea to life without a technical co-founder? Well, Gearhart is here to help. They're a product development studio founded by serial entrepreneurs. Acting as your fractional CTO, they've built over 70 successful products, including SmartSuite, which was named 2024 SaaS Startup of the Year. After selling his last company for $200 million, SmartSuite's founder turned to Gearhart to build his next big idea. Their Ukrainian-born team combines world-class expertise with Silicon Valley connections, helping you scale your product faster and smarter. Gearhart's leadership team even works directly with founders, offering deep insight into startup success. Book your free 1-hour strategy session with their leadership team before the end of May at gearheart.io. That's gearheart.io. So let's talk about where the idea came from. Like, as you were saying, customers have this pain, but they're not, or at that time certainly haven't been actively looking for a solution, right? So it's a new category. So you're pushing this rock uphill that not only you have to tell them about the pain, but you also have to convince them that they actually need a solution and all of this stuff. So where did the idea come from? And then sort of how did you get started this time with your fourth startup?
So this is an interesting origin story. So previous company, Revelo, the one I talked about before, it was a SaaS product that was connected to Salesforce and Marketo, but for Salesforce. In SaaS product, when you develop the product, you have a very well-defined process in which you take changes from the idea all the way to production while understanding it, you make mistakes and everything. We were very efficient in that. But when we had to do the similar changes to Salesforce because it was connected to the product, one of the things we realized it doesn't work. We are not able to do it. We couldn't figure out why. It was clunky, it was hard, it was annoying, created a lot of friction inside the organization. And for me, I thought that back then, we were not professional. We were kind of, small company, don't know how to work this large platform. We have to learn it at some point. It was something, it was a scar, but I said, yeah, at some point we'll get there. Then we were acquired, and after spending some time at Oracle, I left and started looking at that problem, trying to understand, curiosity. And then I figured out, no, it's a structured problem. Because all of these new platforms are created as a no-code platform because of all the benefits of no-code. No-code is great. You don't have structure. If you don't have structure, you have no way of creating that process. Because we keep talking about, the difference between code and no-code. One of the biggest differences is code gives you structure. You understand the relationship between the component. Because it's text, you can understand who's doing what. A conflict is not a crisis. If two people are writing on the same line of code, yeah, you can merge conflicts in Git, and you can do all of those things like as a second nature. When you look at how the similar changes are done in these SaaS applications, these cloud platforms, everything is a crisis because you don't have that structure, because it's a sort of point and click marathon to get all the changes in, and then you have to replicate it in another environment. It's a nightmare. So what I figured out is that is an industry problem. It's not our problem. So if that's an industry problem, that's an interesting problem to solve. So this is where we started Salto, put our own money in to begin with. to make sure that we can develop the technology, started developing the technology, and then brought the VCs in.
How did you go about validating the idea? Did you just spend time like having lots of conversations? Did you build some prototype and start getting some feedback?
So as always, you start by talking to people. Start by talking to prospective customers, CIO, trying to figure out if you're on the right direction, adjust and repeat, adjust and repeat. And we knew that we have to develop the sort of what you call the prototype of the technology in parallel. So we did all of that in parallel while feeding it. So it's a process of, about 3 to 6 months of coming up with a prototype that is fed by feedback that you get from prospective customers. So this is how we created the first one, and you always miss. It's nothing new. You always miss. You always kind of come up with things that are not working well. Yeah, I can share a story. Talk about it a little bit before that. I went to pitch to a company, the Salto story, and when I done pitching the story, the lady there basically told me, "That's amazing. Can I hug you?" Yeah, amazing. Cannot hug me, but it's amazing. You get a lot of buzz from something like that, coming back, sharing the feedback. Everybody's happy. 6 months later, when I came with the product, it was like, no, this is not what I'm looking for. And a lesson from that is it's a very basic lesson. When you pitch something in an early stage, that the customer or the prospective customer takes like an artistic freedom understanding what you're saying because you're not very specific. That's the nature of thing because you don't have enough details. So you build something, you kind of pitch something, they hear something else. When you come in later on, uh, things can go wrong. So, lesson for me from that iteration is you need to have multiple kind of feedbacks. And as you go along, as you develop more, give more details, more details, more details. Make sure that you are on the right path. And it's not an easy thing. It's really hard to do. You have to be really disciplined. I don't think I'm doing it well even today.
So I'm curious, when you had that first conversation and this person wanted to hug you, what did you show them? Was it just some slide decks? Was it some working code?
You cannot show code. These are not technical people. So it's a slide deck, mock-ups, or whatever you have from the UI. These are the things this is what we intend to do. And these are the things you can show. And by the way, because of the limitation of how long it takes you to develop something, even when we had something that very specific, the first feedback that we got that was real feedback, kind of something you can use, was go away because it was not good enough. That was a good feedback. Go away is a great feedback because, okay, why? You can understand why they're pushing back on you. You kind of take the extra step of trying to understand, then you go back and it's really, really fast to fix. So that is a good feedback. The positive feedback, it goes the direction I talked about before. It can be really confusing.
What do you think the disconnect was? Was it like just one specific customer who kind of, used this kind of creative freedom to fill in the gaps on what you hadn't described? Or do you feel like you hadn't really nailed the problem like clearly enough, or the solution? Like, what was a big lesson you learned from that specifically about Salto?
Yeah, the lesson for me is trying to be specific, but it's inherently problematic because you don't have the specific of the solution yet. So what you're trying to do is sort of pitch something and get a feedback. So you talk about something. It's not. It's hard for you to be really specific early on, and if you're not specific, it can take a tangent. They can go in a different direction. Sometimes it's good because maybe they give you a good idea about what they want. But in a lot of cases, it's really, really hard to fully understand what they want if you're not specific. So it's about being specific, about showing a product as early as you can, and then you start to get the interesting feedback. But I believe in interacting with prospective customers early as you can, even if it's just talking about the problem that you're solving, because only then you can get great ideas and, I didn't think about this one. But the risk is what I said before. You get a too positive feedback on something that is, it's not even close.
In terms of getting to the first 10 customers, you already touched on this a little bit, that it's a new category. You have to put in even more effort into convincing them that they need something before you can even get to selling it. How much of a struggle was that with the first 10 customers? Because at that point, not only have you got this new category, you're trying to convince customers, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that you still haven't figured out and you're figuring out, right? In terms of the positioning, how to articulate this, all of that. So how much of a struggle was it getting to those first 10 customers?
Not a lot. As I said before, Salto it's a special case where the pain is there. So all you have to do is find kind of the classic early adopters, people who are aligned with the vision. It was fairly easy to do here. So you do the one-offs, and it's the first 10 customers. It's never easy, but it's easier. And I don't remember. It's not a struggle. That's the thing. It's we got early adopters from our contacts, from VC contacts. People get excited by the idea of Salto because one of the things we realized when we started building the idea for Salto, you creating tools that make people professional, because people who deal with that area of the IT feel like they're being given a task, very, very complex task, but they don't have the right tools to solve it. Coming in and giving them the tool, they get excited. They may tell you that, hey, I'm not sure if I'm technical enough to handle something like that, then you have to adjust. But the excitement is there. So getting the first 10 was not a struggle, not a problem.
So would it be fair to say that when you were having these conversations and you kind of articulate the problem, they all agreed because they were experiencing those problems, and then you talk about how to solve it and how Salto solves it, and they get excited, and that part it was easy. But the bigger problem was that most of these prospective customers weren't out there looking for a solution.
Yeah, one of the things that, this is the main problem of what people are calling creating a category. It's essentially a buying pattern. So if you are trying to fit yourself in an existing budget or existing category that already exists, you go to sell something, and the buyer persona looks sideways, and they see lots of peers doing the similar thing, and is just trying to figure out which product. And then it's a feature by feature. If you're creating something new, a new category, and you're trying to sell it, the first thing that people will do, look sideways. None of my peers is doing that. Why should I be doing that? And the default behavior is, okay, I'll wait. I'll do nothing for now. I understand the pain. It's painful, but I lived with that for the past 5 years. Why should I change right now? So get this kind of stone up the hill, you have to create a base of customer that you can reference. Hey, this one is doing it, that one. That's the hardest thing in creating a new category. So yes, we did experience that.
Often what a lot of founders look to at this stage is, kind of design partners and working with specific companies to kind of build the product. And it's interesting because you were telling me you're almost religious about not doing that and staying away from that based on some hard lessons you've learned from your previous startups. Can you share one of those stories?
Actually, I have an interesting story we didn't talk about. So let's talk about the danger of having a sort of what we call a design partner. Design partner can be really, really opinionated and take you in a route that is a dead end. And again, when you're early on in a startup, you're looking for that feedback. You're this is the things that you're looking for. So for me, I'm trying to avoid design partnership. I think it was the previous company, no, 2 companies ago. We had a design partner, a big bank, one of the biggest, who was willing to kind of pay us $500,000 to actually work with them on the subset of the product that we had. And we analyzed it and we realized that this will get us nowhere. And the hardest thing, we didn't have revenues back then, was initial, it was technology. The hardest thing you had to do is tell them, no, we're not going to take the $500,000 because we'll end up nowhere. On the flip side of that, previous company, Novello, our first customer, it's not a design partner. Our first customer he was willing to pay us $1 million a year for what we developed back then. Yeah, it was amazing it's the best validation you can have that we got to conquer the world with that. We try to duplicate that, the use case, the persona, the ICP. That's what you do. That's what you read in books, Take a success, duplicate it. For a year, we couldn't do it. We could not duplicate that. It took us a year to realize that was a unicorn. It's not going to repeat itself. You need to kind of give up on this one. And we kind of overfitted our go-to-market, a little bit of the product on this one. So I'm really, really suspicious on the process of design partnership. I'm trying to have as many as I can. I'm trying to make sure that they have skin in the game. So meaning they have to pay for something. And I'm trying to have a few so I don't overfit. That's the main lesson I learned from those two.
Let's talk about growth and I guess going from the first 10 customers to first million and beyond. What did you do? Was there a specific growth channel that worked well for you, or was it a whole bunch of things that you were just doing along the way and some, was it messier than we sort of imagine when we sort of look back and talk about the story?
It is a message you can think. It's always like trying to understand the pattern. It's really, really hard. So you try everything in the beginning, like everybody else. You try. What kind of emerged after a while of trying to figure out the data is the best channel that we have is events. And even that is really messy because it's specific events. So previous companies, events never worked. You go, you spend a lot of money in a booth, you get a lot of noise, you get thousands of scans, you're happy, you're coming in, you created work for marketing and SDRs and everybody for a few months, and you get, I wouldn't say zero, but close to zero. Here, we kind of built it a little different here in Salto based on that. In the beginning, I didn't want to do events even. I said, no, we're not going to do events. Yeah. And you know how it is. Marketing people push you to do events. I said, let's do events. So I can tell you that the way we look at it, the big events don't work for us. Big events are noisy. Big events are Dreamforce, reInvent. They don't work for us. You have to be there for brand or anything else, but it doesn't work because people are coming in to have a good time, to get swag, and it's really, really get them to work in a sort of professional, trying to find solutions way. Whereas if you take medium-sized events, again, at least for us in Salto, kind of smaller events, it's not that flashy, but people are coming to work, and we've created some sort of a very structured way of filtering people in. We have 2 layers. The first layer is trying to figure out if it's the right persona within the right ICP. Only then they get to the next layer where they get the swag and everything that they're looking for. But then you're already talking about something very specific and trying to get them into the sort of the first meaning of starting to sell to them. These are working amazingly for us. So most of our leads are in QL coming from these.
How do you do that filtering? So how do you, if you're dealing with these people coming through, is it just a matter of like qualifying questions you're asking people when they turn up?
Yeah, it's a trick because you don't have a lot of attention from, so it's a combination of asking the right question and pulling them in with that question. So for each event, as part of the preparation is, okay, what are the qualifying questions? How do we present that? Who's going to sit? Who's going to be the front line? Who's going to be with the back end? So it's a very detailed preparation for each event. We become sort of like a little bit of a machine for that. But for every new event, you have to reinvent it, try to understand, read the data after that. Was it a good event or not? And if it wasn't good in an event, are you going to do it next year or not? So it's a process that we created internally. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, great. So you have that first filter, and then once people kind of pass that, that's where you're having deeper conversations with people. And then what is the general strategy as sort of the event follow up that is there something that you're doing now with Salto that you feel works and we should have done it before?
Yeah, actually, when we started, we didn't do that. So the structure of how they're going to follow up is really, really important, because when the leads coming in, if you can have hot leads, but they can fall. And we had a few examples of that. Hot leads coming in, everybody excited, you share everything on Slack, people are kind of celebrating, and then basically you forget to do anything about it because you thought that this one is doing that. So what's the process of taking the leads in, and if possible, automatically following up on them to make sure that they are part of the process? And I insisted, after kind of missing a few events and spending the money, not getting anything out of it, I insisted of that being automatically to begin with. So even if somebody is trying to reach out to them, we should have something automatic, because that way things don't fall through the cracks and you miss on those. Because even if you get something automatic, you'll get a response from someone who was a hot lead. You respond. So you make sure that you have a process in place, regardless of attention or crisis within the company, that will get you the lead to the right place. Once you have that, you can start ad-libbing on that, making an SDR wants to say, hey, I want to take these two because I feel like I can make them work. Go ahead. As long as you have the process of automating the whole process, you can ad-lib. If you don't have that, you basically just ad-libbing. And that created as I told you, a few missed events.
Let's talk about content marketing. That's also one of the growth channels that's worked well for you. Just tell me a little bit about, like, what are the kinds of things that you do as part of your content marketing strategy, and what was some of the challenges that you faced in implementing something that's working?
So we're doing a lot of creative things in content marketing. But I'll start with the challenge. The biggest challenge in content marketing, there are two challenges. One is, how do you create a cadence? Because it's really easy to create the first, the second one. And then if you don't have anything, going on for a few months, it feels like it's dead, and it's worse than not having it. The second one is measuring the effect of that, because you can invest a lot in content marketing, and you tend to invest a lot in content marketing, but it's really, really hard to fully understand the effect of that. How do you measure that? Because in today's marketing, everything is a few touches. So you could have the content that you have affect someone to get into your booth in the event. This is how you got it, and you kind of measure it on there, and you don't understand, that the fact that they're there is because of content. So it's really, really hard to measure. And when it's hard to measure, there's a tendency to kind of, when I need to do the next investment, should I do the investment? Should I not? And you end up, yeah, I need to do the investment, so maybe should do half of it. So you kind of not going all in. So it's about discipline. It's about knowing that you have to do it. We did a few interesting things. So one of the things we did, because it's as we said, new category, we created what we call Salto Leap. Salto Leap, it's basically a university of properly managing a configuration for each of the applications. So you can go in and consume content, video lessons that are not Salto specific even. Like, how do you properly do that and that in NetSuite or in Salesforce or in Okta? So just to get our brand out there. It's time consuming, but I can tell you that it creates a brand around what you do that feels like it's working. For that, we were able to measure some of it and it worked nice. So that's one thing. One of the things that most companies are doing, and we're doing the same thing, salary surveys always work because people are interested in that, and they'll open, they'll download, you'll get the lead. So doing that. And on top of that, because we're selling sort of an engineering product, we're doing a lot of technical writing or technical visionary writing kind of thing. This is the way you should do it. This is the right process. Look here, look there. So we're spending a lot of time on that as well. So yeah, we're investing a lot in that. We probably need to invest more, as I said before, but that's a significant challenge for us.
Yeah, I think this thing about content investment is always a tough thing. This example that you gave where you could have whatever you invested in your content marketing over the last year could have led to somebody reading something and then turning up to an event. But then when you come to the event, it's the event that gets the attribution for that lead. And then you're like, well, why do we need to invest in content? Right? Let's do more let's move that money. And then you suddenly find, well, maybe things aren't working as well.
You always have that discussion with your VP marketing or your CMO is like, yeah, it's multiple touches. We don't know. And as a CEO, you always get pissed from that.
Yeah.
But you always get pissed because you want to see your dollars working because you have to invest. Yeah, it's a problem.
Okay. The other thing that you do is, I mean, I sort of look at Salto and it kind of feels like an enterprisey product, although it's not really, right? Because you have customers at different sizes of companies. But I was surprised to see that there was a free tier as well on the product. Can you just explain some of the thinking behind that and why you decided to do that?
Yeah, so that's it's an interesting use case. So one of the things we're doing is a platform. It's called impact analysis. Basically, it's read-only for configuration. We analyze the configuration for you and tell you a lot of interesting things about them before you go ahead and make changes. In the beginning, we thought we're going to sell that, sell it as a feature. We realized that it's not a feature that it's easy to sell. There is an industry around doing impact analysis or some few vendors, but it's hard to sell that. And we have the unfair advantage that we can also kind of do not just read, but read and write. So you know what? As a way to make an impact or splash in the market, we're going to give it away for free. All the impact analysis away for free, and we'll get people in. It worked. We got a lot of people going on the platform, few thousands of companies going on the platform, using it on a daily basis, a lot of active users. And it's a source of leads for us. The problem with that, if you don't carve out your user or your use case in the right way, and I'll give him the Salto examples, people kind of coming to Salto to do read-only, and not necessarily they want to do the read-write, which we kind of charge for. So you end up with sometimes wrong leads, or it's not yielding, or segment of your users on the free tier is not working at all. But at the end of the day, as we said before on content, it's hard to do the full attribution because they get to experience the brand and the product and everything. And at some point, they'll get to the right conclusion and start using us. So we're still maintaining the freemium. It's hard, it costs money, and you get a lot of sales people whining about it because they feel it cannibalizes the ability to sell more. But I think it's worth it. But I can tell you that it's always a discussion. Should we continue? Should we not? Because you pay for it. You have to maintain it. You have to give support for people using it. So it's always a discussion.
Also, are there any challenges when you've got people coming on the free plan in terms of onboard? Is there like a steep learning curve they have to go through in terms of setup, configuration, onboarding, and that sort of thing?
There is some of it, but because it's read-only, it's fairly easy. We kind of invested. That's part of the investment I talked about before, and trying to make it as easy as possible. I wouldn't say like it's completely trivial, but it's easy to get on board. We're not investing in onboarding them. We have a knowledge base that they can use to help themselves, but it's not a big deal. But we went through investing in that area to make it easier for them to get on the platform.
Let's talk about one of the channels that's been tougher to get working, Outbound. What's been the biggest challenge there?
Well, it's like it's a little bit of, for us at least, for all the company I've been involved, it's a little bit of black art, because basically you're trying to think about the process. You have a list of names, people not necessarily in the market for your product. You're going and try to get them excited over a product. The yield is low. The friction within the organization, people who need to get up on the phone or email or whatever means you're doing, get a kind of a stream of no's on a daily basis. It takes a toll. People hate doing that. It's hard to get people proud about the achievements because, an outbound can take a while for you to get in. So, but it's something you have to do. It's like, eat well and exercise kind of thing. It's something that it's one of the sources that you have to go after. So we invested in Salto actually in trying to do it better, trying to create a process in which people understand that they will get no's. It's okay to get no's. It's part of the overall outbound thing. This is how a no looks like, and this is what you should expect. This is how to get better at that. And we brought someone external who've trained our salespeople and SDRs on that. We try to create some kind of, sense of accomplishment of getting those, kind of celebrate any accomplishment outbound. But it's a tough one. Think about the process of getting a daily go away, I don't want to talk to you anymore on a daily basis. It's hard. But it yields. If you do it as a process, at some point it's starting to yield. As long, as the brand become more recognizable, people starting to kind of react to your outbound, but you have to keep the thing going. And you have to remind people, this is why we're doing it. It's how it feels like. It's a grind.
Yeah. And do you think it's getting harder now with 2025, AI noise, agents, all of this stuff?
In general, everything is harder with agent.
You're right.
And, everybody has a budget to spend on AI. So the way you have to tell a story about something about AI. I think it's everybody deals with that. We deal with that as well. But I think outbound in general is harder in 25 because people are kind of having a better way of blocking you because of rules, because it's easier to get an AI to read your emails. It's easier to get the outbound motion. So you get creative. LinkedIn is an amazing platform to do outbound on. So if you do it in a creative way, if you have the right way of doing that, you can actually use that. So you make the outbound a little more interesting to your target audience, a little more engaging to your target, but it's still essentially, end of the day, it's an outbound motion. You're going through a list of names and trying to figure out how to get to them.
We talked quite a bit earlier about the new category and some of the challenges around that. And one of the ways that you were telling me earlier how you try to overcome that was targeting the discretionary budget that your prospective customers had. Can you just explain what you meant by that and what exactly you were trying to do?
Yeah, as I told you before, it was really easy. It's still easy to get people excited about it. The problem when you come in with a new category is that there's no line item in the budget dedicated for you. So where do you get the budget from? If you can get people excited, they'll use the discretionary budget. So early on, it was kind of easy to get people excited and, talk about discretionary budget. So we built our land pricing and motion, ICP and everything. Our go-to-market was around that. We'll get to someone, get him excited, price it correctly so they can use the discretionary budget. And we actually were very specific. We want to have a manager or a director be able to approve it so it's kind of fast and you can take from that and get into the organization, because later on, the way that our product works is you have a lot of way to expand, not just grow more users, but add more applications to it, which is really easy to do. What happened was 23, middle of 23, when the market started to take a dive. The first thing that disappeared was discretionary budgets, along with the people from the organizations, a lot of layoffs and cuts. So what do you do then? So what we realize, it's gonna be a struggle to get a deal. When I say struggle, it's gonna be longer. You have to go through more processes, show your value, ROI calculation. So if I know that the process is gonna be longer, it's no longer like a 1 or 2 months of sales cycle. We should charge more because the volume is gonna drop. So what we did is we changed our pricing in a way that allow us to charge more, but we basically turn into usage-based pricing, which allow you to kind of tailor it to, the customer have a feel of they can start small if they want to, but when they start using it, you get to a higher price very fast. So we changed that. We basically drove our landing ASP. We managed to get it to 2x, kind of, in a very short period. We kind of adjusted the ICP, meaning, okay, let's go to larger companies. It's going to take longer, so let's spend the time in kind of a larger prospect because it's okay now. We changed the product a little bit. So we had to make a lot of changes, and it's not something like this. The problem with that is there's no kind of, light bulb coming in and say, hey, the market is going down, no longer discretionary. It takes you a while to fully understand what's going on. Kind of, deals that were hot and we're sure you're going to get them fast and the expansion was already there. All of a sudden, they're no longer there. A customer that was happy. You talked about huge expansion with a, Fortune 100 customer. Few months later, they're churning because they don't have budgets anymore. So it takes a while to fully figure it out. It takes a while to fully understand what are the steps that you can take, what is within your arsenal. So it's a shift. I don't have a lesson learned from that other than, think hard. Don't work in a kind of down economy. That's the only thing I could think about.
How did you eventually figure that out? What gave you the clarity in terms of, okay, this is what we think is going on, and therefore we need to make these changes?
It wasn't one take kind of thing. We always do. The culture in the company is engineering culture. We overanalyze everything. So we had a lot of sessions trying to understand what is the framework, why is it not working, are we not pitching it correctly, are we not? So at some point, when it was obvious that the economy is going south, we go, okay, let's put that in the equation. Let's see what it yields. And let's put this in the equation. Then you start seeing people being laid off, okay, and budgeting being cut. So we don't have discretionary budget. That's the problem. And from there on, you start pushing in the right direction. But it takes to fully understand that because it's never obvious. When in hindsight, it was, of course, what happened. While you're in it, it's really, really hard to understand what you're seeing.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that despite you having gone through 3 startups, 3 successful exits, there's still a lot of, I guess, like basic or fundamental kind of challenges that you've hit and had to kind of figure out and overcome, which shows that, you're human just like the rest of us. But at the other hand, it's almost like, it's almost like somebody who's doing it for the first time. It's like, oh my God, it's like, this is what I have to deal with, right? It doesn't get any easier.
No, it's not. It changes because I'm not in the same market. As I told you, each company is a different market. The only thing that I get from experience is the sense of, okay, I've seen worse. I can live with that. I can find a way around that. That's the main thing. So you always kind of, okay, I think I can kind of solve that problem, but I need some time. So that's the only thing you get from experience.
All right, let's wrap up. We're going to go into the lightning round. I've got 7 quick fire questions for you.
Let's see.
What's one of the best pieces of business advice you've received?
Early on, we had someone really seasoned working with us, and I'm an engineer by education, so I love engineering problems. He told me a sentence that goes like, I would replace or any business problem with 10 engineering problem if I can. That kind of stuck with me because for me, an engineering problem was, wow, this is hard. We need to solve that. But for me, no, it's not an issue. Solve the engineering issues. I don't want to have any business problems. So that stuck with me for a long time. I still use that.
What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
The classic one. I'll explain why. The Innovator's Dilemma. It's an old one. It's a good one. As I said, I'm overanalyzing. For me, reading this book, other than it's amazing, but it sort of lays the blueprints of why startups make sense. For me, it was like, aha, this is why startups can work. This is why I should be there, because the whole framework that is lays there. So that was amazing for me.
What's one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
Make decision fast. The biggest thing I see, I'm helping entrepreneurs as well. I'm an angel investor in that. People are afraid to make mistakes. And if you're not making just-in-time decisions, the organization sort of floats on a default and you'll get the wrong results. Take the decision, and if you're wrong, admit that you're wrong and fix it. But make sure that you have the right decision in time, because I think that's the toughest thing.
That's great advice. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
Yeah, if I'm not saying ChatGPT these days, it became like a moot question. It's everything. Yeah, I'm doing everything with it. So yeah.
What's a new or crazy business idea you'd love to pursue if you had the time?
I don't have one. I thought about this question. So I'm working with entrepreneurs. If I have an idea, I'll push it through someone. I did it a few times, kind of be part of the ideation of other entrepreneurs and try to push my ideas. So I don't have one that is itching right now.
Well, we'll see if in a few years' time what's going on with that. What's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
Yeah, I thought about that. That's a tough one. I call it I'm logically superstitious. Because to be superstitious is, again, I'm logical. To be superstitious is trying to find pattern and a way to influence the chaos in your life. In startup, it's chaotic. But what I'm telling myself is kind of trying to justify it by saying, yeah, the fact that I'm deciding to walk with my right foot in when I walk in the door, it gives me more confidence. This is why I can do better things. So I'm kind of trying to balance the two, but yeah, I'm superstitious.
Love that. And finally, what's one of your most important passions outside of your work?
I insist on having hobbies. I'm obsessive about my hobbies, and I'm kind of spending a lot of time, my off time on those, and I'm changing every 6 months because it needs to be fresh for me. My last one was motorcycles and track riding. I'm switching back to playing guitars these days because I feel like I didn't play my guitar for too long. So every 6 months I'll switch and be obsessive about something else because it's get everything flowing, and I need something outside of work.
Do you think it also kind of dedicating the time for that also helps you with the business?
Yeah, it gives you perspective, because otherwise it's day and night just thinking about that. You get in a loop, you get in a sort of an echo chamber. The fact that you're obsessive about something else gives you a lot of perspective.
Love it. Rami, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure. And if people want to check out Salto, they can go to salto.io. And if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
LinkedIn, Rami Tamir, can find me.
Thank you, my friend. It's been a pleasure. And I wish you and the team the best of success.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Cheers.